Hi everybody. You're going to make your first graphical program, and I thought it would be best to start with something simple. So what you're going to do is make a graphical version of the student picker that you made in challenge set 7. You'll see here that what I've done is I've copied the string array for the student picker and I've copied the method, the student picker method, from challenge set 7. You can't see it because I've hidden it, but it's just copied and pasted directly from the challenge set 7 document. It's entirely the same. So you don't have to worry about that or change that in any way. What I'm going to show you today is all of the stuff to make the graphical version of the program so that you can make something that looks like this, where you click a button and it displays a name up here at the top, and after you've clicked it 5 times, it just resets the array just like it did in challenge set 7. And when you click this button, it actually closes and stops. You'll see here that I've got it's pretty basic what you need to do, so just read through here and make sure that you cover everything. And I'm going to be pretty deliberate in walking you step by step through making this because Java graphics are a real pain. There are all sorts of different components. You'd think it would be easy. You add a label and a button and call it good, but there's actually a lot of stuff that you have to set up to get it going. So if you have any trouble, just kind of watch this video and I'll get you there step by step. So first things first, with Java, you even have to create the window. So the window is your starting point, and in Java that is called a frame. So I'm going to be making all the visual components up here at the top as member variables because multiple parts of the program are going to be accessing them, so we need to make them available to everything. So the first thing you need to know is that the window is called a frame, a JFrame. So I type JFrame, frame equals new JFrame. Now this frame here, lowercase, is just the name of the variable, so you can name it anything you want to. I'm calling it frame just because it's easy. Let's see, so I'm going to, I could just do this and this would be fine, but I want to give my window a name. It's the thing that you see in the upper left hand corner, so I'll call it, I don't know, student picker, and that's what it'll display in the upper left hand corner. Now you'll notice that this is red. That means that I need to import it. So I could just click right in here, hit Alt Enter, and import the class. And up at the very top, you'll see it says import JavaX swing.star. So all the components, the visual components, will be included with it. Next, I need a label. That's where the text will display. And I'll say JLabel, and I'll call mine name label equals new JLabel. And in parentheses here, if I want, I can have it say something to start with. So I'll say click the button to start with. If you left this empty, the JLabel would just be empty. So the text that you put in here doesn't especially matter. And then I need a button, so that's a J button, and I'll call mine select button equals new J button. And once again, you have these parentheses here, and they can be something. I'll just have it say pick student so that the button has some text to tell you what the button does. That's pretty typical. So now I've got my frame and my label and my button, and I'm done, right? No, not really. What I have to do now is I have to set up the frame, all the things that make it so that the frame will show up on the screen a certain way. First, you have to set the size, so I will do frame set size, and it's looking for 2 numbers, so I'll do 400 width by 400 height. That seems relatively reasonable for a size. Next, I need to tell it that when I close the window, I want the program to stop, because by default, if you just close the program, it'll keep running in the background, which means that over time it would take up a bunch of memory and be bad. So I will do frame.set default close operation to JFrame dot exit on close. So now, operation, not operator. Now when I close the thing, it'll actually stop the program. Next, in order to put the button and the label in there, I need to give the frame a layout. There are a bunch of different layouts that you can use. I've got the Java Swing layout documentation there so that you can read it. It'll show you all the different ways that you can lay something out. For this one, we're just going to use what is called a grid layout. So you specify the number of rows and columns, and it places your graphical elements into there based on which one that you put in first. So I say frame.set layout, and I'm going to say it's a new grid layout. And inside parentheses here, I say how many rows I want. So I want 2 rows, and how many columns I want, 1 column. So I will have 2 rows. On row 1, I'll have the label, and on row 2, I will have the button. So now I need to add my graphical elements to the frame. So I do frame.add, and the first one I want is the name label. And then I'll add the button, frame.add, select button. Now is probably a pretty good time to make sure that what I've done is working. So I will run it, and hopefully I'll see a window with, the one thing that I forgot to do that's really, really important. So you don't see anything. I ran it and it worked, but you didn't see anything. And that's because I forgot to make the window visible. It's a silly, silly thing, but if you don't make it visible, then you won't actually see it when you run the program. So frame.setVisible is true. This thing should always be last, because if you add a button or something like that, or make some sort of change after you've set it to visible, that thing that you added might not actually show up. So let's try running it now. And there, now it's visible. I've got a button. It doesn't do anything right now, but I've got a label and a button, and I can close it, and you'll see that the program stops when I close it. Great. So next up is making it so that when I click on the button, it does something. And in order to do that, you have to tell it that you want it to listen for button clicks. Once again, something silly like a button is supposed to be clicked. You would presumably want it to be listening for clicks. But Java doesn't do that by default. So up here in the class header, you have to tell it that it is going to implements action listener. And what that means is we are going to listen for button clicks. So you'll notice this is red. I have to click in here and hit Alt-Enter. That has imported the action listener class, and it's still unhappy, so I have to click in here again and hit Alt-Enter. And this time I'm going to implement methods. What that means, typically when you implement something in a class, there are certain methods that have to be there that perform a certain function. So I'm going to click this and then click OK. And what you'll see is that it has added an empty action performed event to the bottom. When the button is pressed, it automatically runs whatever is in the action perform method. And I can prove that to you by having it print hello here. It's going to print out down in here, not on the screen, right? So right now when I run this, I'll have a button. And when I press the button, it should print hello down in the console. Oh, because there's one more thing that you need to do. I need to, and this is once again really silly, I need to tell the button that I need to add an action listener to the button. So I'm going to do select button dot add action listener, and inside of here is something called the context, like basically where is this action listener being added, and I'm adding it to this class, so I just say this. So select button dot add action listener this. That will take care of you. So I'll run it again, and you will see that when I press the button, it says hello. So now whenever I press the button, it runs whatever's down here. Well, I don't want it to just print something random on the screen. I want it to put something inside of the label. So what I have to do is I have to say that you need to set the text on the name label. And the way I do that is saying name label. That's the name of my JLabel. If yours is different, then make sure that you put the proper variable name there. Namelabel.setText. And why don't we just try having it set the text to hello inside the label. So that means it won't change, but it'll work. So there, it says hello. Good, that's what I want it to do to start with. But in actuality, what I want it to do is I want it to print the value that gets returned, the string that gets returned when I run the random student picker method. So instead of having hello in there, I'll do a call to random student picker. Now the string will get returned to here, and it should set the text to that string. Let's try it. So Josephine, Kelly, Carrie, Kim, Jim, and now I should get a unique one again. Kelly, Josephine, Jim, Kim, Carrie. Seems to be working just fine. Great. So that's the basics. All that's left that I did that you haven't seen yet is make it look a little nicer. So for instance, I wanted the text to be in the center of the label. So up here where I define the label, the name label, in addition to saying click the button, you can also add something. So I'll say I want it to be in the center. And to do that, you do comma, swing constants, dot. And you'll see that there are a bunch of different options here, and I'll choose center. That'll make it so that my text is centered in the middle of the label. And there it is. Now it's in the center instead of over on the left. The other thing I can do is I can change the font size. And to do that, this is something that happens in the constructor right before or sometime before you set the frame to visible. I want to set the font on the name label. So I'll do name label dot set font, and I'm going to make a new font that is the type I'm going to pick is sans serif, and you can look up the different font types if you want. And it's going to be, let's see, font dot, I get a bunch of options for how it will look, bold or plain or center baseline or whatever. How about I try bold? And then the last thing I set is the size of the font. I think I want it to be size 40. You can play with that as well if you want. So now I've set the font on my name label, which is a J label, to be a new font that is sans serif and bold and size 40. Let's run it and try it and see. So it's bolded and centered and pretty big. That's basically all there is to it. There's other stuff that you can experiment with, but you've got the basics. You should be able to reproduce this, no sweat, and in the next challenge, you'll be a little bit more on your own. Thanks a lot.